HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents Mermaid Cove by Michelle Bennington. Read by Courtney Patterson. Chapter 1. Rothdale was abuzz about the upcoming bourbon, bands, and barbecue festival, and no one was more excited than the distilleries in the bourbon community. Each distillery was going to put their finest bourbon on display in hopes of winning the grand prize of $10,000, the prestigious Kentucky Distillers Guild Award, and an interview in the National Bourbon Review magazine, which could catapult an unknown distiller into international fame. My boyfriend and I had stopped by Mermaid Cove for the purpose of loaning them a canopy for the festival. Even though I worked at a competing distillery, 4 Wild Horses, one of the owners of Mermaid Cove was my best friend, Millie's mom. I shook off the feeling of being watched as my boyfriend, Deputy Jimmy Duval, and I parked in front of the Mermaid Cove Distillery. Though I was now fully healed, the sensation of being watched or followed lingered around me, along with weird and downright horrific dreams and memories. No matter how strong I tried to be, the trauma from my best friend's murder and my own close call came rushing back to me at the sight of any distillery. It didn't help that I still worked at 4 Wild Horses Distillery. The dreams were worse, though. Several nights a week, I'd have dreams of my best friend that morphed into nightmares of my mother's murder or faceless monsters attacking me. Then I'd wake to spend the rest of the day in a jittery mess, and my mind in a sleep-starved fog. Yet life went on all around me. Prim was hanging on in spite of her late-stage cancer, bless her heart. My neighbor, Patrice Bishop, and my ex-husband, Porter Cam Campbell, were my biggest saving grace in assisting my recovery and helping Prim live with her illness. And Millie kept me sane with welcome distraction. Jimmy was around when he could be, but his work kept him tied up a lot. With funding and staffing shortages, he was called on more than ever. Jimmy turned off the truck. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." I forced a smile. "I'm fine." "You look a little spaced out." I shrugged. "Just thinking." "You've been through some stuff. I can recommend a counselor that—" I lifted my hand, cutting him off. "I said I'm fine." I threw open the truck door and grabbed my near-empty bottle of Kentucky Spice soda. "Let's go." I didn't want to go through the counselor issue again. I was eyeball deep in school loans and medical debt. I couldn't afford a counselor, too. I downed the rest of my soda to fuel the southern social graces I'd need to face the people inside. Patrice Dawson stood behind the black granite counter in the Mermaid Cove Distillery gift shop, which also doubled as a lobby. "Rook Campbell, are you here to spy on us and learn all our secrets?" Patrice looked over the rim of her wire frames from under a mop of tousled gray hair. Her eyes were blue mingled with green, rendering them nearly teal in color. "I wouldn't dream of it." I grinned, but my smile felt tight. "Besides, if I told you, that'd make me an awfully poor spy." She laughed and stepped out from behind the counter. She was country chic in black denim and a black boat-neck shirt. Patrice opened her long, skinny arms. "Come here and give us a hug." Patrice Dawson was Millie's mom. Millie and I had practically grown up together, joined at the hip from kindergarten through high school until I went off to college, and she went into yoga and massage therapy training. We hugged. Her delicate violet perfume tickled my nose. "I haven't seen you in a dog's age." She held me at arm's length. "Have you been keeping yourself?" "Fine as frog hair." I tucked my hands into my pockets and rocked back on my heels. Her gaze drifted over to Jimmy Duval, Rothdale's finest sheriff deputy, who, for the past 2 weeks, was doubling as my beau. Her brow lifted. I see." So not subtle. My face grew warm. Time to deflect what was shaping up to be an awkward encounter. "You look great." She did. Her skin was clear and pale, with only the faintest smile lines around her eyes and mouth to signal her 58 years. Young and fit for her age, she might have looked younger if she still dyed her hair chestnut brown. But she let her gray hair take over, which gave her a magical, witchy quality that I adored, especially when she wore all black. A small silver mermaid dangled from a chain around her neck. "That's a pretty necklace." She touched the mermaid. "Thank you. Dee Dee and I got ourselves these little necklaces to celebrate our 5-year anniversary of owning the distillery." Patrice looked over my body wrapped in dark jeans and a thin red cotton shirt. "You're looking good, girl." She winked at Jimmy. "I bet that has something to do with you." Jimmy chuckled. I blushed, and Patrice laughed, nudging Jimmy with her elbow. She sobered. "Oh, honey, Millie told me all about Prim's cancer. How's she doing?" "As well as can be expected, I guess. She has good days and bad days." "She's still refusing treatments?" I nodded. "Yeah." She shook her head and squeezed my arm. "If there's anything at all I can do, you don't hesitate to tell me, okay?" I nodded again, biting my lip to keep from getting emotional. Delia Dee Dee Winslow floated from the back room, wearing a daffodil yellow jacket and flowy skirt. A large gold statement necklace lay flat against her radiant bronze skin. Her black hair was plaited into several braids, which had been coiled into a bun at the back of her head. She smiled. "Well, look what the cat dragged in. Patrice, why didn't you tell me Rook was here?" "They just now walked in." Dee Dee and Patrice had been friends since kindergarten. Much like my bestie Millie and I, they went to the same college together, shared dorms and apartments, stood at each other's weddings, and helped each other shoulder all of life's ups and downs in the way only a best friend will do. Their friendship had weathered the test of time, lasting far longer than most marriages. In its own way, it was a kind of marriage. Dee Dee swept me up in a tight embrace. She smelled fresh and bright, like sunshine. I introduced her to Jimmy. After asking after each other's families, Dee Dee said, "What brings y'all out this way?" "We wanted to take a tour of Kentucky's only female-owned bourbon distillery. And I brought that loaner canopy for y'all to use at the festival tomorrow." "Thank you so much," they said in unison. Patrice said, "Our canopy has a huge tear in it. I don't know how that happened. Clem must not have been very careful when he put it in storage, and we didn't have time to order a new one when we discovered the tear." "Think nothing of it. My boss didn't mind one bit loaning it to y'all since we had extras. Everything's in Jimmy's truck." Both women looked at Jimmy with a curious light in their eyes. I tried to ignore their questioning gaze and continued, "Do you have someone who can help us get them out before we leave?" Patrice acknowledged me with a nod, but she was already honing in on her target. Jimmy. "Now, then." She extended an elegant arm with a charming and sneaky side smile. Her voice oozed honey tones. "The infamous Deputy Jimmy Duval." He chuckled and accepted her hand. "I'm not sure how infamous I am." Patrice flashed me a knowing look. "Oh, I do." And with that, the dam of Patrice's politeness and hospitality broke into a flood of questions leveled at Jimmy, who tried to maintain an equilibrium of courtesy and respect in the face of her interrogation. Meanwhile, Dee Dee, in the vein of older women who have no filter and whose one mission in life was to embarrass all younger people, snapped her head around and descended on me. "Y'all are dating now? What happened to Cam?" My skin crawled with fire ants, and a thin film of sweat broke out under my arms. "He and I are no longer together." Her usual velvety voice tripped up 2 octaves. "What? Patrice, were you aware of this?" Patrice stopped her interrogation long enough to answer. "I've known it for a while. Millie told me." "How did you not know that? I'm certain I told you." Dee Dee smacked her lips and tapped Patrice's arm. "No, "You did not, Missy. Why didn't you tell me?" Patrice ignored the question and turned back to Jimmy, drilling every ounce of significant information out of him while he tried to keep up with both conversations. Dee latched on to me. "What happened to Cam?" "He and I divorced about 19 months ago." I tried to keep my answers short and as polite as possible, but I did not want to discuss Cam. Things were always so complicated with him. We had problems. In short, we had both contributed to the dissolution of our marriage. He moved on much faster, which hurt, and a few weeks ago, when he'd declared he still loved me, it had freaked me out because he'd been engaged to another woman at the time, and I doubted his love. Not because I thought he was manipulating me, but because we'd been spending a lot of time together, and I thought he was mistaking nostalgia and sentimentality for love. "Oh, I thought you two were forever and ever amen." She crossed her arms over her ample chest. I pulled at the front of my shirt to fan the heat building in my face. "It's really complicated," I muttered. The doorbell rang as a visitor entered the distillery. "Millie, thank heavens!" I waved. "Hey, girl." Her long dark hair was thrown into a loose ponytail. She labored under a large box. "Hey, y'all." Jimmy jogged toward her. "Let me take that." The small ropes of muscles in his biceps and forearms bulged as he took over the box. "Thank you," Millie breathed, rubbing her arms. "Whew! That sucker was heavy." "Are those the T-shirts for the festival?" Patrice trailed after Jimmy. "Sure is." She pushed her sunglasses up on her head to reveal teal eyes like her mother's. Classically pretty, she reminded me of a pre-Raphaelite model with round, limpid teal eyes and a straight nose over plump lips. Dressed in a white peasant skirt and coral tank top, the teeny bells on her ankle bracelet jingled as she walked, harmonizing with the soft flip-flop of her sandals. She reached to greet me with a hug. I whispered in her ear, "I'm so glad you're here. They're putting Jimmy and me through the ringer." "Mama, are y'all bothering Rook and Jimmy?" Patrice waved a hand. "Not at all. I was just curious about a few things." Patrice and Dee rifled through the boxes and each pulled out a peach T-shirt with teal writing that read, "Mermaid Cove Summer Nights." They held them up, chattering and inspecting the cotton shirts. Clement Sykes, the custodian, limped from the back of the building, the keys jangling with each step like spurs on cowboy boots. He was a big, burly man, about 6 feet tall, wearing a Mermaid Cove T-shirt and worn jeans. His arms were brown and leathery from a life of working outside. "Miss Dee, I want to show this spot back here. I think we're going to need new equipment." "Oh, dear. Let me go look at this. I'll be right back." "We also have a fan out in the tasting room," Patrice told him. "It's been out for a few weeks." Clem glowered at her. "There's only one of me," he snapped. "Y'all act like I'm some kind of Superman. There's only so much a body can do. Maybe if y'all hired me a little help around here." Dee clapped her hands and jumped in. "Let's not get into that now." Patrice put her hands on her narrow hips. "Now, Clem, you know we appreciate you." He humphed as Dee stepped around Clem and started down the hall. "Show me what you're talking about." She glanced back at us. "Excuse me, I'll be right back." Clem flashed the stink eye at Patrice one last time before following Dee out of the room. Patrice rolled her eyes and waved at me. "Never mind Clem. He's a good worker and does everything we need, after he grumps about it a bit." Trying to break the awkwardness, I looked around, taking in the track lights and shiny oak walls. "It looks like y'all have put a lot of work into the place since I was here last." "Oh, we have. You want to see what we've done outside?" Millie added, "You should. It's gorgeous." I locked fingers with Jimmy's. "Let's go. You haven't seen the place yet." "Sure." Jimmy reached for his wallet. "How much are the tickets for the tour and the tasting?" Patrice waved her hands at him. "Put that away. We won't take your money." After a few minutes of obligatory polite arguing over payment, I said to Jimmy, "You aren't going to win this." Let it go." "All right." He put his wallet away and held up his hands in defeat. Patrice told Millie, "When Dee Dee comes back, tell her we're touring and that I need her to look at that paperwork on the desk." Millie leaned on the counter and laughed. "You're just trying to get out of paperwork." "Every chance I get," Patrice guffawed. "I sure love spending the money, but I hate keeping track of it. I'll do the ordering when I come back." She patted Millie's arm. Patrice turned to us. "Come on, y'all. Let's get this party started." The Mermaid Cove Distillery lobby and gift shop was similar to most bourbon distilleries inside, with the oak barrel decor, but it was blended with touches of beachy flair in the form of fishing nets, mermaid wall hangings, turquoise glass mosaics, and nautical-themed pictures. Together, it created an elegant, rustic chic environment. Patrice showed us through the distillery itself, which contained the copper distillers, great oak fermenter bins, and bottling line all distilleries needed to function. Where Mermaid Cove separated itself from all the others was the green space outside the buildings. We passed out of the production building into a veritable paradise. We walked along a seashell path, quite unusual for Kentucky, to a man-made waterfall that equaled in beauty and magnificence anything Mother Nature could produce. Out of the brush of honeysuckle and ivy, a stair-step of great stones fell under a cascade of rushing water that pooled into a lazy stream wrapping around the perimeter of the distillery. On the other side of the distillery, a bridge arched over the stream topped with lily pads, like a Monet painting brought to life. This bridge led to an English flower garden complete with a hedge maze. Winding back around, we were brought to a covered patio behind the bistro. In the evenings, Patrice explained, it would be lit with a myriad of patio bulbs, which would, no doubt, lend an otherworldly quality to Mermaid Cove Distillery. When we'd completed the tour, we gathered at one of the patio tables. I sat at a table and scanned the scene around me. Trees on the cusp of autumn colors rimmed the property below a sapphire blue sky filled with enormous puffy clouds. The jittery feeling I'd had all morning melted away in the serene atmosphere. "This place is amazing, Patrice." "Should be. It cost me a fortune. Money we didn't really have to spend." She looked around proudly. "It's been a ton of hard work and many sleepless nights, but this is our baby, our pride and joy. We hope to pass this on to Millie and to Dee Dee's son, Roderick, in the future." She looked down at her hands. "If it survives that long." Millie already owned a yoga and massage center, so I couldn't imagine how she'd manage a distillery, too. But it wasn't necessary to bring up that particular rain cloud to wash out Patrice's hopes. A server brought out a sampling of the Summer Night's bourbon whiskey for Jimmy and me to taste. I examined the bourbon in the light. The amber liquid was clear as a topaz gemstone. Not a single particle. Holding the glass under my nostril to get the nose, I detected notes of peach topped with hints of honeysuckle and vanilla. Taking the shot, the flavors exploded in my mouth. If I could drink a sunset, this was it. Warm, golden, smooth, tranquil. It fired against my tongue and warmed all the way down my throat into my belly. "Man, that's good stuff." Jimmy swirled the dark amber liquid in the snifter. "I want a bottle of this to take home." "Me too. That is delicious. There's no way 4 Wild Horses' Devil's Kiss can compete with this at the competition next weekend." I took another sip. My mind was already racing to create cocktail recipes. "This'll make fabulous hot toddies this fall and winter, with a bit of orange and ginger. Or pair it with Kentucky Spice soda to make a Kentucky Mule cocktail. The citrus ginger of the soda and a touch of mint would be really refreshing, especially if you make it frozen." Patrice tapped my arm. "Oh, that's a good idea. I'll share those ideas with our bartender." She ran her hand through her hair as she studied the landscape. "You think we can beat Fox Trace at the competition next weekend, too?" Their totally foxed blended bourbon whiskey is one of the best in the industry." I said, "There's no doubt Fox Trace is good, but it's not this good. If y'all don't win next weekend, then that contest is rigged." Dee Dee was mad as a wet hen when we returned, slamming papers and pens around on the countertop and muttering to herself. "What's wrong?" Patrice pulled a couple bottles of Summer Nights off the shelf by the counter. "Oh, that fox Graham was out here nosing around, trying to get us to drop out of the contest." Jimmy launched into deputy mode. "Did he threaten you?" "No." Dee Dee waved her hand. "It was his tone. And I found him back in our office." She rubbed her upper arms as if cold. "What?" Patrice cried, setting the bottles on the counter by the register. "What was he doing back there?" "Don't know. I'd stepped away to go to the restroom and found him before he reached the desk. He tried to pretend like he was lost." Dee Dee rolled her eyes. Jimmy's eyes searched the ceiling. "Do you have any cameras in place?" "Not yet." Patrice wrung her hands and exchanged a worried look with Dee Dee. "We've been meaning to get some installed, but—" Dee completed the statement. "We hadn't gotten around to it yet." Patrice swept her hand through her long bangs. "I guess we'll need to get cameras installed next." Dee Dee pulled her jacket around herself like a hug. "I wonder how much all that'll cost." "There's a good security company downtown called Gatekeeper Plus. They have a range of systems that could run a few hundred to a few thousand. Depends on the package." Jimmy scanned the room, extracting his phone from his pocket. Both women's eyes glazed over. Jimmy typed notes on his phone. "Did Fox take or damage anything or hurt you?" Dee Dee hugged herself tighter. "No, he's just so aggravating. When I asked why he was here, he started saying stuff about how we should drop out because we'll never win. That Summer Nights can't compete with Totally Foxed by any standard, which is complete nonsense if you ask me." "Don't you worry about that," I said. "Summer Nights is one of the best bourbon whiskeys I've ever tasted. Y'all have every chance of winning." Jimmy typed notes into his phone. "Why is this important? What would you win?" Even though I'd been talking about this contest with him for weeks, he apparently hadn't been listening to a word I said. "For starters, we'd win an interview with National Bourbon Review magazine, which would put us on the bourbon map, so to speak. It could really boost our popularity and our sales. We'd also win the prestigious Kentucky Distillers Guild Award and about $10,000, Patrice added. My eyes popped wide. "That's a lot of money." Dee Dee pursed her lips and nodded. "That money would come in handy, too. Patrice cleared her throat loudly and shot an intense look at Dee Dee, cutting off her sentence. Dee Dee pinched her lips together. Jimmy pulled out his card and handed it to Dee Dee. "If he threatens you or you need him removed from the property in the future, you let me know. If he becomes violent or threatening, you could get a restraining order against him. Or I could just get that little jerk in a headlock." Dee Dee imitated a headlock with one arm. "And razz that silly head of his." She used her other arm to imitate scrubbing an invisible scalp with her knuckles. We all laughed. Jimmy's presence and the comic relief seemed to soothe the women, returning the atmosphere to its prior ease and warmth. Patrice rang up our purchases with a deep discount. As we said our goodbyes, Patrice and Dee Dee commissioned me to give their love to Prim. "Tell her we're thinking about her," Patrice said, holding my hands. I squeezed her hands. "I will. Thank you for thinking of us. And don't worry, I'm sure y'all are going to win. Then you won't have to worry about Fox Graham ever again. Your star will rise, and he'll be left in the dust where snakes like him belong." Chapter 2. We began setting up at the Bourbon, Bands, and Barbecue Festival around 10 in the morning, so we'd be ready to go by the time the festival-goers poured into Rothdale's town square by noon. Folks from all over Kentucky came to check out the vast array of food, clothing, and beverage vendors and sample the best bourbon and barbecue in the world while enjoying live music ranging from southern and classic rock to country and bluegrass. Fortunately, August's heat wave had abated into the balmy climate of mid-September. The day was perfection. Since my distillery, 4 Wild Horses, had entered Devil's Kiss bourbon whiskey in the contest, we set up a booth to offer samples and notify folks of upcoming events and bourbons. I'd dressed comfortably in a pair of worn jeans, sneakers, and a long-sleeved gray T-shirt with a blue distressed FWH logo on the back. I pulled my hair up in a high ponytail to keep it out of my face, while my co-workers and I worked on organizing the booth and setting up sample flights of our most popular spirits. My phone buzzed. The federal prison. It was my dad's weekly call. My heart sank under the weight of guilt, shame, and sadness. I hadn't been to see him in about a year. It was too hard to go and too easy to put off. I hated that he was in prison. Truth be told, he probably deserved some jail time for his smaller crimes. He wasn't an honest man. But he didn't deserve a life sentence for a murder he hadn't committed. I silenced the phone and crammed it in my back pocket. I didn't have time right now. I had work to do. It was crazy how one little thing could trigger a flood of memories. Now, thanks to that call, my past splashed over me like cold water. How, in my youth, Prim would take me to the prison to visit Dad once a month. Dad had always told me he was getting an appeal and would be out soon. But soon never came. Then, as I got older, school, extracurricular activities, and boyfriends ate up my time, and my monthly visits dropped to quarterly ones. By the time I reached college, life had overwhelmed me, and my visits dropped to a couple times a year and weekly phone calls and random conversations with a lawyer. My dad was innocent, but I didn't know what to do about it. I trusted the lawyers to do their jobs. But I realized, as I opened a bottle of Devil's Kiss and poured out several samples, I hadn't heard from the lawyer in a while. Millie's face entered my vision and snapped me out of my reverie. "You all right?" she asked. A sequined bandeau she'd crafted herself held back her luxurious waist-length hair and matched her mustard-colored tank top, green batik-printed maxi-skirt, and jeweled sandals. I slapped on a bright smile. "I'm fine." She eyed me with disbelief. "If you say so." Then she thankfully changed the subject. "Got you a chai latte and pumpkin spice cream cheese Danish from Irene's." She held out a paper bag and cup. "I figured you hadn't had a chance for breakfast." My mouth dropped open. Millie was right, of course. I'd stayed up late looking through my dad's old trial transcripts, for the 10th time, in hopes of catching something. Inevitably, I slept late and was forced to rush out of the house without so much as a coffee. "You are a whole bowl of awesome." I grabbed the bag and cup. "I knew there was a reason you're my bestie." Digging the Danish out of the bag, I winked at her and bit into the sweet, spicy flavors of fall. "Thank you so much," I said through a mouthful of food. "It's slow at my mom's booth right now. Thought I'd come hang out with you for a bit." Millie extracted a Danish from the bag. "Morning, ladies." Jimmy strode up to the booth. He said to me, "You've got something on your lips. Hold on." He kissed me, then pulled back, smacking his lips. Pumpkin spice, cream cheese." He stroked the small of my back. "My new favorite." My cheeks heating up, I nudged him and leaned against his chest. He asked, "You need help?" "There's still a few boxes in the van." He flexed his biceps like a pro wrestler. "Never fear. Jiffy Jimmy is here." Millie and I exchanged a glance and burst out laughing. He winked at me. "Try not to watch me walk away." He wiggled his hips as he headed to the van. We giggled at him again. Of course, the way he filled out his jeans made it impossible for me to resist watching him. Millie leaned over my shoulder. You're smiling like my grandma with a winning bingo card. I can't help it. I mean, you see him.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?